Saint Anthony of Padua is one of the most beloved saints in the world, known as the Saint of Miracles and the saint whose words moved hearts. Among the many extraordinary events of his life, there is one of the most striking and symbolic miracles, the miracle of the mule that knelt before the Eucharist. This story has been told for centuries and continues to inspire faith because it shows that even creation itself recognizes the presence of Christ in the Blessed Sacrament. The story begins in a town in Italy where Saint Anthony was preaching. At that time, there were many people who doubted the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist. One of the strongest opponents was a heretic who challenged Anthony openly. He said he would not believe in the real presence unless his own mule could recognize it. Anthony, trusting not in himself but in God, accepted the challenge. A day was set for this incredible test. The heretic decided to make the challenge even harder. He locked up his mule and starved it for 3 days without food or water. His plan was simple. When the mule was brought before Saint Anthony holding the Eucharist and a bucket of food, the animal's hunger would clearly win. In his mind, this would humiliate Anthony and prove that the Eucharist was nothing more than bread. Finally, the day arrived, the square filled with people who wanted to witness this dramatic test. The heretic brought out the mule, weak and desperate for food. Everyone expected the animal to run immediately toward the bucket of grain placed nearby. Anthony, calm and filled with faith, held up the monstrance with the Blessed Sacrament. The crowd held its breath. The mule was released. It took a few steps toward the food, and everyone thought the test was over. But suddenly, something incredible happened. The animal stopped, turned, and slowly walked past the food. In complete silence, the mule approached Saint Anthony and then bent its legs, kneeling down before the Eucharist in an act of reverence. The crowd gasped. It was a miracle so clear that no one could deny it. An animal, without reason or human understanding, recognized the presence of Christ in the Blessed Sacrament. The heretic was stunned. His own test had backfired, and he had no choice but to accept the truth he had denied. Right there, he converted, acknowledging the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist, and many others who had been present were deeply moved and strengthened in their faith. This miracle carries a powerful message. So often our faith is tested. We may face doubts or be tempted to treat the Eucharist as something ordinary. But the mule reminds us that God can use even the simplest of creatures to testify to His truth. If an animal could recognize Christ, how much more should we, with our reason and faith, fall to our knees in adoration? The miracle is not just an interesting story from the past. It is a call to each of us. How do we approach the Eucharist in our own lives? Do we prepare our hearts to receive Jesus, or do we approach casually, forgetting the greatness of the mystery? Saint Anthony teaches us to trust in God completely. He did not try to win the argument with clever words or human logic. He simply relied on God's power, and God Himself showed His truth. In times when faith is ridiculed or questioned, we can remember this miracle. We do not need to prove God with endless debates. Sometimes, the most powerful testimony is quiet faith and confidence that God will act. The image of the mule kneeling is unforgettable. It reminds us that Christ is truly present among us in the Eucharist, even when the world refuses to see. It is a call to deeper faith, to humility, and to adoration. If this story inspired you and strengthened your faith, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next stories of miracles and saints that continue to speak to us today.